Evening, everyone, and welcome to the program Spot On, right here on Invicta 98.9 FM. My name is Jacqueline Adebija, and we're live on Facebook, so you can go on there and drop your comments for us, if you so like. This evening, I would like to talk about the future of Nigeria, talking about the humans who make up the future of Nigeria, talking about the youths, talking about those who will lead this country tomorrow. You take a look around you, and the picture doesn't look promising. The picture itself, for a lot of people would say, is depressing. But there are bright lights here and there. And it is when in the finding of one of them that you're curious. I mean, a curious mind would want to know what one of those youths that is living differently thinks or feels about what they see around them. And that is why it's with pleasure this evening that I welcome Ekome Chinedu. Ekome Chinedu is a young man serving in Kaduna. And I'll be taking him up on several issues that have got me, in a bind as someone of the older generation. I would like to know and just find out how their mind works. What is going on behind the faces that we see every day? Ekome, you're welcome. It is a pleasure to have you here on my program here at Invicta.
It's a big pleasure to be here on Spot On, and it promises to be exciting. I'm looking forward to
I
it.
cannot wait to hear what you have to say. I'm just going to jump right into it and ask you about one of the first things that I usually ask young people when I see them. I see that you have a strong work ethic. I see that you're committed to doing well during your service year. And that is why I would want to ask you about where you're finding good examples. Do you think that the young people of today have enough of good mentors? Because there are people who will tell you that mentorship is sorely lacking in our culture. Apart from your parents, a lot of people will say, if you ask people, who's your role model? They will tell you, my parents. Well, apart from your parents, have you identified other role models? And do you think that we have enough of them? Because it's not just even having a role model. It's that role model taking you under his or her wings and teaching you what drives them. That in itself is mentorship. So, as a young person, as a matter of fact, a young person finding themselves in a strange place for the first time, would you say that your generation has enough of mentors, good mentors?
Well, at this point, I mean, first and first, times, have changed. That's the first thing. Gone are the days, some 10 years back, when you look at yourself, you look through the future and you say you want to, be like this person. You are looking forward to be like this speaker, this politician, this. But, it's no longer the same. Times have really changed, like I said. And right now, a lot of persons are just, paddling their canoes alone, trying to struggle through life, with everything happening around. Everybody's trying to, just wake up, eat, survive. And it's not the larger percentage of the youth, the populace, are not even looking towards having mentors or public speakers or people who are going to inspire them anymore. Because times have really changed, giving credits to the present economy and everything that has been happening around them. So I think it's a lesser percentage of people who have mentors these days, who have people who they look up to these days. And, times have really changed. The youths are now, looking to paddle their canoes, like I said before. They're really looking to just survive, get money, and, better their lives. That's the major thing. So
you're telling me that the young people today, because I'm assuming that you're talking to me not just from your angle, but you're thinking of your friends and, the discussions you've had with friends.
Exactly.
So are you telling me that young people today don't really look around them? They're not as interested in people taking them under their wings to teach them as they should be otherwise. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, exactly. Because some of them feel like the morals that they get from the family, that they get from the home, will be enough to project them or sustain them to a certain level in life, and they don't really need somebody to really be a guide to them. So right now they just believe they could get things from the media. The media is really infiltrating a whole lot into the brains of the young ones right now. So they are really getting a lot from media. They feel like, oh, inspirational speakers will come and just talk, walk through your left ears, it comes out from your right ears, and nothing will happen. Is
it because of disbelief? Are you saying that the young people nowadays have come to a point where they disbelieve, have no trust in people who would otherwise have been considered as people in leadership positions? Are you saying that the young people today do not see any need for that kind of training? Because you mentioned, you said even politicians, nobody is interested in understudying them anymore. And I'm wondering why. Is it distrust? Is it what? Why?
Distrust is one of them. And, when you look at this precedence that has been set, you feel reality should be in play, should be in check. Yeah. And when you come up, and I'm a youth, I'm a young person, you come up, you tell me, I've had encounters with a lot of public speakers and motivational speakers who come talk to us and tell us to do this, do that, try and read the book. But the reality check is always vague for us to see, because you come up and tell us, oh, we have to be this, we have to be strong, we have to be that. But the reality of it, we can't keep up with this kind of society, though. It's a complex society we live in now. And a lot of people do not believe in those kind of, so maybe lesser percentage still believe, but the larger percentage of the youths these days do not. If you come up to some schools, they get bored, because this is what they've heard over time. You tell them, get motivated, get this, get that, and the reality of it.
We keep coming back to the reality.
The reality
of it.
Is always.
How do you see this reality? What are you seeing? Because I would expect that the average motivational speaker will talk about the benefits of hard work, of committing to a process, committing to a journey, and ensuring that you complete it. I would think that a motivational speaker would speak to you about morals, about having strong values, about honesty, about creating value, because I've listened to some of their tapes, and generally this is about what so when you keep coming back to reality, that the reality, when they come to your schools, especially for you, the final year students, and they're talking to you about motivational things, they're telling you how you should live your life after school, what will work for you, and you say when you come out, you find out that the reality, you keep talking about the reality. What's that reality? How is it looking?
So the reality is about implementation, about getting it done on the physical face. It goes beyond just scratching the surface. It goes as far as hitting the nail on the head and doing things, following up exactly.
Now, are you saying that honesty seems not to be paying? Are you saying that commitment to work ethics, to moral values, to just generally being an upright person, when you come out into the reality of Nigeria, are you saying that you're finding that those things don't work?
It does. It depends on the sector, and it depends on the environment you find yourself. And sometimes you, if you're for instance, you're a tech person, and these days, tech is going crazy these days. Everybody is tapping into it. The government is tapping. Private bodies are really going into it. So it depends on the environment you find yourself. If you find yourself in an environment that's static, that's not really moving, and you're going to have problems. You're going to remain in one position. You're trying your best. You just realize that everything you're trying to put in your effort, you put in everything, and it seems like everything is not working. You feel like you're in course, your village people are after you, and you feel like you're doing well,
like
for
you're
yourself.
Not progressing.
Exactly. You're trying, you're putting in your best, you're pitching ideas to brands, you're doing everything, but it just seems like the environment or the government is the stumbling block, trying to stop you from getting to the next level. So it still depends on the environment. We have seen some government officials, some bodies who are really pushing a lot of youths to, be better. They have empowered them. Scholarships are there. Startup tech funds are there for you to just, start up your life. So a lot of them depends on where you are, the environment you find yourself. We've seen some religious bodies, trying their best to really help in some, fashion, some other, creative industry are also trying to.
So, but generally, the environment is not encouraging.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying.
It goes beyond the youth right now for everyone. We know these days, truth be told, Nigeria is not really a conducive environment to do business. These days, we need to be factual, and we need to be clear. When you want to do business, it takes a whole lot of groundbreaking. You have to be really strong to stand tall in Nigeria right now. When you try, a lot of businesses are trying to move away from Nigeria now. They're planning to move to Ghana. Twitter HQ could have come to Nigeria for some reasons. They are in Ghana. So a lot of funds. Microsoft are planning to go to Ghana again. So everybody is trying to paddle their own canoe, like I said before, when we started the podcast. And it's just the reality of it. And I'm still going back to the reality. What have we done? What has the government done to, really follow up, to mentor the youths, to do things, to put things in, and everyone will be happy. And it goes back to the economy as well. When you as a startup and you have a laptop, you're a graphic designer and you're trying to put out stuff, most times, it's private industries that really help. We've seen a graphic designer who get jobs from artists, from singers, that's where they really get their jobs. How many times do the government really come at your call? And that's just the reality we see as youths these days.
No structure in place.
There's no structure for
all of you.
We've heard of the National Youth Empowerment Program by the government. It's all paparazzi, and you try to apply and everything, but the reality is not always there. After a month, it just fizzles out, and everybody's back again. We have tons of youths on the streets who are unemployed. The unemployment rate, according to the NBS, was staggering, about 38.5%. And I'm here, like, how? We have tons of graduates, churning out from schools. We have people who leaving the NYSC camp. After their service, what next? So these are the things we need to check. Those are the places we need to check before we can, have a good
before we start to talk about mentorship.
Exactly. So if those things are not in place, we can't overemphasize the need to, put all these things in check.
In place. All right, let's quickly move on to the next thing I really wanted to ask you about. It might be tied to the first, I don't know. I'll hear from you. It's about the morals of this current generation. I'm talking about the youths of today. The average young man now just wants to go out with a lady who is maid, someone who is going to take care of him. Now, this is very contrary to what we used to have in those days, when young men would even, with the little that they had at that time, they would want to let you know as a woman that, I'm the man, like I take care of my bills and all of that. Nowadays, seems like for a lot of people, reverses the case. Girls are falling over themselves trying to provide for the young boys. Many times, these girls also have lost moral compass because they don't get that money the hard way. They actually also have some sugar daddy on the side who will be financing her, and then she on the other side, on the other hand, will be using some of that money or some of those funds to take care of the main guy, the man that she really, really cares about. And let's just say that while the Nigerian youth, yes, the president at one point said they're lazy, and a lot of people said, no, not lazy. Don't call the Nigerian youth lazy. But there seems to be a culture where the moral compass has been lost. People not really sure about what roles that they ought to play. When I say people, both men and the young men and the young women, not entirely sure about their position. Everybody's just doing whatever they want. You go out today, you go to any club, very young people are the ones who you would find in most of those clubs. Many times, very young ladies being accompanied, or older men being accompanied by very young
Younger
ladies, and you know that this isn't a love match. It is not because, they're in love. It's mostly because of the economic factor. And I'm beginning to think, because when I was growing up, there was shame in a lot of this. But nowadays, that isn't even a thing. Like when you're talking about shame, it's not even a thing. You see young girls, coming up on social media and saying, yeah, I have a sugar daddy, so what? Even addressing their kids, telling them that talk to your father, not to me. I mean, I was on my own when your father decided to come and, talk to me. So there's this shamelessness, loss of morals. And as someone from an older generation, I'm wondering why. Through your eyes, from your own perspective, why do we seem to have things like this going on more blatantly than before?
Well, moral decadence in the society it's on the rise, and it has gone beyond control. I don't think it will take a whole lot to get things back, under control, because I think this generation has really, blown up, because social media seem to be one of those factors. I mean, in the early 2000s, at least I grew up around that time, from late 90s, early 2000s. There was no social media. It was just the traditional media where people write letters and all of that. When you try to reach out to people, you write letters. There was no social media, then. So social media was one of those factors. In the name of trying to create content, you get discontent and things that are not pleasing to the eyes. During the COVID-19 pandemic in last year, there were loads of craziness going on social media, on Instagram and everywhere. See young girls, putting out their bodies out there.
Right.
People doing stuffs to be relevant, and it has
so,
gone.
But if they were to do this and people didn't subscribe, I don't think they would continue. So that would mean that these women who were stripping on Instagram Live and whatever else live, and people were paying per view, if they didn't have demand, they wouldn't find themselves supplying.
Exactly, like what you said before about the economy. The economy seems to be the major factor.
So, but if it's the economy, isn't that why you should watch your every kobo? I mean, like, why would I want to pay 5,000, 10,000 to watch a lady strip or to have live sex, like porn?
Exactly. So, it's just like, influence. They look at the Western world, for instance, where they see what's going on in America, in the UK, and everywhere. They seem to be influenced by all of that. And peer pressure is one of those things, one of those factors. I remember back then in school, I was pressurized to do a lot of things out of my way. But the way I have brought up myself, my parents did their best, and I also taught myself to be very, moral and just be behaved, and I taught myself. So if you cannot, take your eyes off, those things going on, I mean, you need to have control over yourself and focus on what.
Ekome, if I'm using myself as an example,
okay,
and as a guy, usually people don't dash guys money. It's easier for girls to find people who will say, take 1K there. I mean, without strings attached. Like, people have empathy, I feel, for ladies more than men. So as a young man, for instance, I hustle or I work and I'm paid. I get my salary or my allowance. And then someone tells me that some lady is going to be stripping and they're paying 10,000 per view for Instagram Live or something, or a cross-dresser like Bobrisky is about to strip and is demanding 10,000 for per view. Why would I want to shell out my hard-earned money to go and watch someone else make money off me? It's not like I'm touching that person. It's not like that person is interested in me or even knows that I am alive. Why would I want to shell out money for that kind of thing? I'm sincerely trying to understand from your point of view. I'm sure you've heard from friends. What's the motivation?
I really don't know. Like I don't know. Like at this point, I mean, a lot of people do crazy things, crazy stuffs, behind closed doors. Nobody knows, and it has infiltrated to a point where you can't tell them to stop. I mean, the peer pressure, it has gotten beyond control. I mean, and if you look back, let's trace it. Let's take it back to when. Okay, it's from 2010, late. Things like this are not. They were occurring. Fine, they were happening, but it was not as rampant as it is now. And when a society has really failed in terms of putting things right and setting the pace right for the upcoming generation, the new generation, I mean, things like this will happen. I mean, there's no going forward. I mean, look at the country right now. Look at what's happening in the country. There's nothing really exciting. You enter the news, there's really, for a youth, for a young man, I mean, there's nothing exciting to really hold on to. So now a youth will want to pay, like you say, they'll tell you it's out of boredom. They'll tell you it's just fantasy. They're catching fun. They have the money.
With hard-earned
cash. And some of them are not hard-earned.
Okay,
in some cases.
We're going somewhere now.
Someone who is working, who works who juggles 9 to 5, will not pay his hard-earned money that he gets at the end of the month for such. I mean,
it's usually easy money.
It's easy money. I mean, it's easy money that just that's lying around. You just feel like, oh, 10K. How much is 10K?
I can just go and fill a ticket and
just let's get it done. Back. But if you're working really hard, you're juggling 9 to 5. For instance, you're in Lagos, for instance, where you wake up 5 a.m. or 4 a.m. in some cases, and you're coming back around 10, 11. I mean, you have families to feed. I mean, you won't want to even go towards that. But so it's the way the society has now been structured, and it has gotten so bad.
And so let me tell you something someone said to me quickly. Someone said nowadays threesomes, when we're talking about threesomes, foursomes, sex orgies actually are more common than we would like to think. My eyes almost popped out of the sockets in my head. Like, what are you saying? So I'm hearing that young men, young women, because they're bored, in quote, would get into bed with as many people as possible in an age when we're hoping that the likes of HIV, instead of rising, will go down. We have young people expressing themselves in very, very dangerous ways, dangerous ventures. And the only question that seems to come to mind is it that our generation, I'm talking about the present crop of parents, not those who are more grandparents than parents. I'm talking of those who are parents still having kids who are, pre-teens, teenagers, young adults. Did we fail? Are we still failing in having the kind of conversations that we should have with you people? I've asked this question before, and someone of my generation said, did your parents have any conversation with you? And, the truth is, they didn't. But I also know that we made some terrible mistakes that we could have done without making, So I know that those conversations need to be had. Do you think that this present crop of parents, this generation of parents, have failed and are still failing?
Well, I think to an extent they did, because I've seen a scenario where I schooled in Benin, University of Benin, and I've seen some very ugly, interesting situations where parents go as far as encouraging their, the children to, do more social vices, do more, and just get the money home. It's gotten, the society. I'm putting everything back to the society, and I'm looking at.
But we
some
are
parents,
the society.
we are altogether. We make up the society,
right.
And some parents, for the love of money, these days they don't care where you get the money from. Just bring the money home. Like some families in Benin, they'll be like, oh, you need to work. Look at this boy. They compare you with other boys. Look at this boy. He's doing well. He drives a C300 Benz, and you're working, you're getting 40K. Where's that going to take us? And they go as far as pushing you out. Some parents
Really?
do that. Yeah. They go as far as pushing you to really go hustle and, dabble to the other way and, make it home.
So this is why we see people dabbling into the occult. We see them dabbling into
fraud and everything.
Fraud, sexual immorality.
Everything is happening. Like you see some cases where so parents who even encourage their daughters to want to go to Europe. They even go as far as getting the money for themselves, any land available, and sponsor them.
When they know that most likely it would be prostitution
Exactly.
that they would go and.
So exactly, I think so. The way it is now, we growing up, the way our parents brought us up, in a godly way, taught us through church. Come back home, the family did their, as an agent of socialization, did play their part, and we also brought about, sent us to school. We learned, we came out strong, and here we are. So some parents have failed in their responsibility of upbringing and educating their children. These days of the internet age now, you see where a young girl or a young boy of 10 can operate. If he handles a tab or a phone, it goes beyond where you never imagined. And they will just open different sites, and what the media is, storing, what the media is sending into them. I mean, they learn some of those things from the media.
From the media. So I'm just going to, before we go on our commercial break, the last question I would like to ask is, tying it to what you just said about the kind of things we're seeing on the media. As a matter of fact, I don't remember exactly who told me this, but recently someone said to me, they asked one of the bandits, how did you learn? Who taught you how to shoot? And he said, well, I Googled, I watched YouTube and all of that, and I learned. So my question is this. Do you think that as solutions meant for us as a people, that this Twitter ban and probably more of a regulation of the social media in our space would make more sense? A lot of people will shout to blue murder and say that's an infringement on our human right, of free expression, being able to speak and be heard. However, social media has spoken, and even from you, a young person, you have actually agreed and, affirmed the fact that social media, digital platforms have also had an impact, negative impact.
Big impact.
Big negative impact. See, you're even adding big negative impact on the way young people see the world. So, do you think it's too late? Do you think that regulation of our digital space is worth pursuing?
Well, this is a very big one, and I'd like to just take it up quickly before we go on break. And yeah, in as much as the social media space has had a negative impact, we shouldn't forget the positives that it has had. I mean, like the Twitter, for instance, there are a lot of people who make their daily earnings from Twitter. We've seen a lot of influencers, a lot of digital marketers, a lot of PR guys or girls use Twitter to, as a tool to survive right now. So this regulation has been coming back and forth. It's been coming a few years now, and I think this point they might succeed. I don't know if they're going to succeed, because a lot of other platforms like TikTok, Instagram, people use them to create content. There are a lot of content creators who these days, when it brings me back to unemployment. I've seen some influencers who, out of the state of the nation and unemployment, they just go up online and start creating content, and from there they start making something reasonable. We see a lot of Instagram comedians, a lot of them content creators who in fact, there was this particular guy who said he got out of school, no job for like 4 years. He was at home, he didn't get a job, and he just went online and started ranting. He started ranting, and that was his content. And the views started popping. He got almost 10,000 views in a day.
Okay,
and
so
from there, he started making money. And a lot of
so we're going to go on
into
a commercial break now. But before then, I'm going to leave you with this to think over before we come back on air. You know, for every surgical procedure, you know, we're talking about life and death. For treatments, when people are ill, the drugs that we're given, some of them have serious side effects. There are drugs that will take away libido. There are drugs that will tamper with your sleep. There are drugs that could affect your mental alertness. There are drugs that have every orthodox drug has a side effect. However, the doctors will tell you that when they weigh your condition and they see that the advantage far outweighs the disadvantages, they go ahead and do it. And so that means that if they find out that you losing libido as a human being, where you cease to experience pleasure or even desire for it, is not as important as saving your life, never mind even if that person hasn't had kids yet, they go ahead and administer that drug. Why did I give this analogy? I'm sure you're seeing the picture I'm trying to paint. That social media has done a lot. It's a beautiful tool. However, we're talking about survival of a people, survival of our culture, survival of who we are. Just think about it before we come back. If you're with us this evening, we're on Spot On with Ekome. And Ekome has been talking to us, Ekome Chinedu, and he has been talking to us about how he sees the world as a young person, or should I say how he sees Nigeria. Do stay with us. We'll be right back after this.